Welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute devotional podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse. Broadcast from the ever-beautiful Sharonville, Ohio, on the sunny side of Cincinnati. Happy birthday to Daily Dose Radio. Yes, sir. It's our birthday week. Yay. Yeah, if we only had cake and streamers, now that would just complete the sound. As you could tell, I went out and found us some orchestration for the Daily Dose Radio birthday bash here in the Bible Bistro. We're celebrating 7 years. Today is the day. Actually, today is the day, the 20th of March in 2013. I did a test run. I did a little test podcast. I don't think I broadcast it anywhere, but I just did it, gave it out to some friends and said, listen to this and see what you think. And then got some responses back, and the next day we kicked off Daily Dose Radio. That was 7 years ago in 2013. And so today, celebrating 7 years of podcasting through the Psalms verse by verse. It comes up every day, 5 days a week. The only time I take off is on Christmas. We're doing 2 weeks of break on Christmas, and then we're right back at it, studying the Psalms verse by verse during the weekday. I told you I'd tell you a little bit about the beginnings of Daily Dose Radio. I always like to do a little history when we do this day, so I'm going to take a little bit longer today than 5 minutes. I hope that's okay. January 2013, I got a letter from a local radio station, and it was a little Christian radio station, and they were advertising to the churches, basically come and start your own broadcast here at the studio. So I'd gotten those letters before and thought about it, and I have a history with broadcasting years and years ago, and so I thought, you know what, I just ought to do that. That would expand the church's ministry a little bit. It would maybe kind of sharpen my teaching ability some. So I went down there, and they wined and dined me. You know, they took me all around the studio, and I met all of their celebrity broadcasters, and they showed me where all the things were produced, and they showed me, you know, all the different things that I would have access to if I became one of their broadcasters. And then at the end of the little tour, they took me into the manager's office, and the manager handed me the rate sheet. And he said, this is what we will charge you to have your own broadcast. And I was in shock. I was in a cold sweat by the time I got out of there. It was so expensive. I really don't see how national broadcasters do it. It is so expensive. It's exorbitant, the rate that you have to pay to be on radio just for 15 minutes. And it's not just 15 minutes in prime time. You know, it's not 15 minutes of drive time in the morning or 15 minutes of drive time in the evening. No, we're talking about 15 minutes out of prime. And it's just so expensive. I walked out and I said, well, there's no way that this is ever going to happen. But the Lord wouldn't leave me alone about it. Kept thinking about it and thinking about it, and I knew it wasn't good stewardship for the church to spend that kind of money on something that was just going to be a little bit of time. And so I'm thinking about it. I began asking folks about, you know, if a fellow wanted to be on the radio, if he really felt led to do some broadcasting, how would he do it? And a friend of mine said, well, have you ever considered podcasting? Now, in 2013, podcasting wasn't brand new, but it was kind of getting kicked off. He said, why don't you think about doing a podcast? You know, you can do it for pretty much free, just a little bit of investment. He said, try that. He said, you don't even have to invest in anything right now. Just use the microphone that's on your laptop or a microphone that you have handy. He said, do that. Try it out and see what you think. And so I began researching it, discovered Spreaker, discovered some information about podcasting, the format that I wanted to use. I prayed over it, realized that I wanted to do something short form, and I wanted to do something every day. I wanted it to be something that was continual, that built on itself, that somebody could just drop into one day and then they could come back in 3 weeks and drop into it again. Or it could be something that people could follow as they, made their way methodically through a book of the Bible. And I realized that I've always wanted to do something with the Psalms. So I said, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. I'll do a 5-minute podcast every day, and I'll study the Psalms, and I'll just take it a verse at a time. And so I built this little format that I have here, doing a 5-day-a-week study. I try to do a Psalm every week. And sometimes it doesn't work out because the Psalms are so long that for me to do an in-depth, verse-by-verse exposition, it's just not possible. So I have to take more than a week. But that's okay. And it usually runs about 4 years. That's the way, that's how we ended up the first go-around. And I think that we're just about on track for that with this second iteration of Daily Dose Radio, what I'm calling Volume 2. So this time next year, we'll be ending Volume 2 because we will have gone through it a second time through 4 years, and then we'll start up again. We'll go through Volume 3, and we'll do another 4 years studying the Psalms verse by verse. So that's how it all began. At the very beginning, I just called it Daily Dose. It wasn't Daily Dose Radio, and at the very beginning, there was no such thing as the Bible Bistro. The Bible Bistro has grown out of that. It has become sort of the publishing platform for everything that I do. Daily Dose Radio, Creek Road Baptist Pulpit, the School of Wisdom, the books, the website, all of the social media outlets now, they're all keyed to the Bible Bistro. That has become the dominant marketing tool, the Bible Bistro. And so everything's falling under that. It has become its own publishing arm. The Bible Bistro is publishing all of the podcasts, all of the books, everything. That's how we began, just a little simple thing that I wanted to do to help reach folks and help teach folks the wonderful, beautiful things that we see in God's Word. Today, as we finish out Psalm 119, the main section, we're going to look at verse 104. And let me just read that for you. Through thy precepts I get understanding. Therefore I hate every false way. Now you'll remember that I said at the very beginning we have the words of covenant here, love and hate. We began with love there in verse 97. Oh, how love I thy law. And then we end with, therefore I hate every false way. You can actually put those two together, couldn't you? I mean, in one verse, just those two phrases. But instead, what we have here is sandwiched between those two phrases, this entire piece about the results of meditation and his commandment and the hand of the Lord and the commitment of the psalmist and a description of meditation there in verse 103. But this is all in the framework of covenant, because the idea of covenant is that you cling to one thing, to one idea, to one person, to one commitment. You reject all other commitments, persons, and ideas. So I've loved thy law. I have hated every false way. And you'll notice what I love now also helps me define what I hate. If I love this, I know that I can't love anything else besides that, because I've made a covenant with this one thing. So when I love your law, that means I hate every false way, because the law is truth, and it is light, and it is life, and it is refined, and it is settled, and it is founded, and it is God's revelation of truth. And so when I love his law, I hate every false way. I hope you'll join me again next week as we kick off Year 8 on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. I'm David Smith. The music today has been performed by the Bluegrass Experiment. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time on Daily Dose Radio.